Buckle up for what might be the biggest medical scam in history. Elizabeth Holmes founded her company Theranos at the age of 19, and it set out to revolutionize laboratories through blood tests that could be performed rapidly while using very small amounts of blood. A year later, Holmes had dropped out of her studies at California's elite Stanford University, so she could focus entirely on Theranos. By age 31, she was a celebrated young entrepreneur in male-dominated Silicon Valley. By then, she was worth $9 billion, the youngest self-made billionaire in the United States. In 2021, Holmes was on trial in California for fraud. Through whistleblower revelations and the research of a Wall Street Journal reporter, it came to light that more than 200 blood tests that Theranos advertised could not be performed on the company's specially developed Edison machine, while results of the few tests it could handle were flawed and unreliable. Patients were misdiagnosed with everything from diabetes to cancer. Holmes also promised investors a much higher company profit than Theranos actually made. On January 3, 2022, Holmes was found guilty on 4 counts of defrauding investors, 3 counts of wire fraud, and 1 of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. In November 2022, she was sentenced to 11 years in prison, and she started serving her time in May 2023. How did it come to this? The idea. In 2003, Elizabeth Holmes conceived the idea of a patch to test small blood samples for diseases and administer antibiotics. She filed for a patent for this concept during her first year at Stanford. This evolved into Theranos, aiming to revolutionize blood testing by requiring only a few drops of blood instead of multiple tubes. Utilizing a specialized blood collection pen, akin to glucose meters for diabetics, samples would be analyzed in the company's mini-laboratory device, Edison. Theranos pledged to simplify, expedite, and reduce the cost of blood tests, potentially challenging industry leaders like LabCorp and Quest Diagnostics. Holmes envisioned billions in sales from this innovation. The rise. After leaving Stanford, Holmes used her parents' savings to launch Theranos. She persuaded her former professor, Channing Robertson, to join as the first board member and secured $6 million in capital by 2004. Initially operating in stealth mode, the company avoided public attention until Holmes emerged as a media figure in 2013. Emulating Steve Jobs, she adopted a similar aesthetic and vocal style, hiring Apple designers for product development. In 2015, Theranos partnered with Walgreens and claimed its tests would be widely accessible. Holmes touted military usage, later retracting the claim under oath. Despite scrutiny, Holmes became a media darling, gracing covers and achieving billionaire status. Theranos reached a valuation of $9 billion in 2015, with Holmes hailed as a visionary and even praised by then Vice President Joe Biden. The supporter and problems. Holmes garnered influential backers, including Stanford professor Channing Robertson, who became Theranos' first board member. Robertson provided scientific credibility and defended the company against scrutiny. Former Secretary of State George Shultz and other prominent figures joined the board, bringing political and business connections. Notable investors included the Walton family, Rupert Murdoch, and Betsy DeVos, though they lost their investments when Theranos collapsed. Upon Ramesh Sunny Balwani's arrival in 2009, he managed daily operations despite lacking biomedicine knowledge or startup experience. Employees dubbed him an enforcer due to his volatile temperament. Holmes concealed her relationship with Balwani. Theranos claimed to conduct numerous tests with minimal blood, but the Edison device consistently provided unreliable or false results. While the FDA deemed one test for herpes reliable, others fell short. Theranos obscured its use of third-party equipment from Siemens. Employees flagged Edison's issues, but management disregarded them, focusing on filtering correct data rather than solving underlying problems. Balwani allegedly pressured dissenting employees, fostering a toxic work environment characterized by distrust, pressure, and deception. Holmes herself reportedly misled staff, exacerbating a culture of fear and secrecy that led to resignations and terminations for questioning or criticism. Whistleblowers. Tyler Schultz, initially a supporter of Holmes' vision, discovered discrepancies in test results and internal data manipulation at Theranos. Despite voicing concerns to Holmes and her partner Balwani, he faced dismissal and threats. Similarly, Lab assistant Erica Chung encountered erroneous results and subsequent intimidation after raising issues with Balwani. Both whistleblowers faced legal threats from the company. Consequences: Chung reported Theranos' malpractices to regulatory agencies, prompting investigations and inspections that uncovered violations. Schultz collaborated with journalist John Carreyrou to expose Theranos' reliance on third-party equipment and the unreliability of its Edison device. The ensuing legal action from partners like Walgreens, regulatory scrutiny, and criminal charges against Holmes and Balwani led to Theranos' closure in 2018. Speak-up culture. Theranos' failure to address employee concerns undermined a healthy speak-up culture. Despite clear evidence of misconduct, the company reacted with reprisals instead of investigating. A robust speak-up culture, featuring whistleblower hotlines or digital platforms, could have prevented Theranos' downfall by addressing issues internally. Neglecting or suppressing such a culture can lead to severe consequences, as demonstrated by the Theranos case. The trial of Elizabeth Holmes. In 2021, Elizabeth Holmes faced trial in California, accused of misleading investors and patients. Her former partner, Balwani, was also charged. Prosecutors alleged that Theranos' Edison machines couldn't accurately perform the advertised tests. Holmes kept a relationship with Balwani secret, who was found guilty of fraud in a separate trial. During Holmes' trial, the prosecution presented evidence of faulty results and efforts to conceal them. Former lab director Adam Rosendorf testified about informing Holmes of issues with the Edison device. Examples of erroneous test results, including a misdiagnosed HIV case and a false miscarriage result, were highlighted. Internal emails showed efforts to hide errors from investors. During the trial, the prosecution unveiled a 55-page report, wherein Theranos officials falsely added logos of major pharmaceutical companies to imply their approval. Despite a Pfizer scientist's testimony against collaboration, Theranos circulated the report with the inserted logos to investors. Former U.S. Secretary of Defense General James Mattis testified, describing Holmes as his primary source for company information. He submitted a presentation claiming FDA and WHO validation, which never occurred. Notably, Erica Chung testified while Tyler Schultz did not. Contrary to expectations, Holmes testified, alleging psychological and sexual abuse by Balwani and admitting to harassing former employees. The defense blamed investigators for lack of diligence, while Holmes acknowledged her awareness of company issues. In December 2021, Holmes was found guilty on 4 charges, though acquitted of others. A key witness's visit to her home caused a sentencing reschedule, but Holmes was ultimately sentenced to over 11 years in prison in November 2022. Despite requesting freedom pending appeal, this was denied, and she began serving her sentence in May 2023, with an expected release date in December 2032. This landmark ruling sends a message to Silicon Valley that executives misleading investors will face consequences. It was all a big scam. As the trial concluded, the truth behind Theranos' facade emerged like a damning revelation. Elizabeth Holmes, once hailed as a visionary, stood exposed as a master manipulator. Behind the glossy promises and illustrious partnerships lay a web of deceit and deception. The Edison machine, touted as a breakthrough, was nothing more than smoke and mirrors, incapable of delivering on its grand promises. As Holmes faced the consequences of her actions, the world learned that Theranos was not a revolution but a sham. Patients had been misled, investors defrauded, and lives put at risk. The tale of Theranos served as a cautionary reminder that not all that glitters is gold, especially in the high-stakes world of Silicon Valley. That's all for today's video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If so, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Opti Health for more captivating health-related content. As always, thanks for joining us on this journey, and until next time, stay cool, stay healthy, and stay curious.